Welcome to &DD, your go-to podcast for candid conversations. Dive deep with us into the heart of life's challenges, business hurdles, and the journey to better ourselves. Join us in exploring the art of living intentionally, finding balance, and enhancing not just your life, but your business and leadership skills. It's time to grow, to inspire, and to lead, &DD. Conversations that transform.
It's not welcome back, is it?
Oh, that's true. This is &DD, and I'm Dave Evans.
And I'm Debbie Halls-Evans.
That was a live take 2.
It was. We're just going to go with it. So, chapter 5, Dave. We are still in season 5. Season 5 is all about leadership or leadership. This is, I think I've said this to everyone, this is my favourite chapter, but this is a good chapter, this one.
Well, you're allowed to have 5 favourite chapters.
What, 8 of the 8?
But if you listen to that, I think that there is a universal acceptance taking place in this process that we're both very proud of this book.
Yeah, really proud. I think it's a great book. It's also now available in Kindle.
Great.
As well.
Are you going to share the links?
Yeah, it'll be in the podcast.
So what's chapter 5, Debbie?
Okay, so chapter 5 is inspired or expired, or inspiration or expiration. And I think the reason why this is really good is because it covers a myriad, a plethora of topics in a very short, kind of like 20 pages. So, and we've also got 2 specific techniques, format and mind changes, that go deeper in this particular chapter.
And you can get format for free on our website.
You can.
Just by joining our email list, you can actually pick that up. Debbie, you know, inspiration. You and I talk about this definitively as a subject. Before we get into the chapter, right? Inspiration without action is a different feeling. And before we start today, I'm not necessarily looking to dwell on that any more than we do everywhere else where you can find us, listen to us, or talk about things. But we're not dismissing other feelings you might be having, like feeling happy, feeling joyful, feeling giddy, feeling nice, feeling warm and fuzzy. Whatever those other feelings are, if you don't act, it's not an inspirational act. True inspiration is where afterwards you get off your behind and you do something about what just made you move.
Okay, so let's explain what you're actually saying here. So the example that we give in the book is, we've experienced it so many times. Somebody goes and they either watch something on telly, they listen to a podcast or a book, and they go, I was so inspired.
Yeah.
And the question as a coach that we ask people is, so what did you do? And then they'll go, well, nothing. So it's not inspiration unless an action follows it.
Because you might just have been emotionally moved, and that is okay.
It is okay, and it's actually great that you've connected with something, but it's not inspiration. Inspiration is about taking an action and doing something with that moment. And inspiration is very, very personal as well. Yep. So I do think that's important. But there is another part of this is about expiration. So we do the whole or element in each of the chapters, and I think it's really important, and I'd like to do expiration first, Dave, because in the book there is a brilliant bit where you've really explored expiration symptoms and how you can fix them. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them because there is 10 of them in total, but I think there's a couple that are really important that we can share and get people to understand. The idea of the book is about challenging that you may at times have inspiration and they may at times have expiration. It's recognising them and doing something about it in both areas. So, go on.
I was just making sure we weren't doing a live and we were doing a podcast by smiling at you. Exploring expiration.
Yes.
I think there's also a universal acceptance that everyone knows is true, that you're born and then you start expiring. Life is an expiration.
Yeah. You're born to die, yes.
That's right.
Yes. So, it's not the expiration I was talking about, but let's be a little bit more specific about areas of work, professional or life. So there's very specifically in the book, the first symptom, for example, is lack of positive, clear messaging and communication. One of the biggest issues that most businesses have, or on a very personal level or a group level, is communication. And it is also a reason for people to expire, not get what they want, not get engaged people, disconnected, all the other millions and zillions of things that people don't do.
Can I just clarify, what's blah, blah, blah?
It's a culmination of everything just shoved into a big washing machine.
So what are you saying, Debbie?
So if you have a symptom in your business that's
Yep.
a lack of positive, clear messaging and communication, one of the things that we share is start looking for the good, and every time you see something or deal with something bad, do it there and then do something good too. It's really important because clarity of communicate what you like smiling at.
I was wondering if you wanted me to comment.
Yeah, I'd love you to comment.
I was just waiting.
Right.
So there's a gem there, right? Sometimes in business you have to have a really serious conversation about something. Doesn't matter how long or how short that conversation is. There's a balance where to immediately feel better, be prepared to do something good. Be prepared to see the good, say the good, and do it. Dale Carnegie talks about sincere appreciation. You know, how many times do you feel sincere appreciation, which is an inspiration, right? And you don't say anything about it. Anyway.
Okay, I'm jumping around because there is 10 of them and I'm not going to go through all 10 of them. So another one that I really like is a symptom of expiration is no shared values. If you are all different at a values-based level, you can't meet in the middle and you can't align or connect at those things. So the fix would be sitting with a team, discover them. You call them also personal success motivators, which is further on in a different chapter as well. But you sit with the team and you find out what the values are.
That's correct.
And you find a common denominator.
Shall I do a quiz show sound?
Go for it.
Ding!
Okay.
That's correct, Debbie.
Right.
It is finding that one thing. You know, I always remember learning about influencing people many years ago in my corporate days, that sometimes you'd work with somebody you maybe have very little in common with, and all it takes is one thing. Values are the same. Is to find a piece of a shared value and connect that.
So the final one I want to talk about, because we had an amazing conversation, and I still think we should literally just walk around permanently with mics on, because our conversation we had this morning connects to this next point, and was about the symptom of expiration is talking about other people secretly and negatively.
Yes. So I think there's huge issues with this one, right? As I say in the book, there is a time where you have to talk as leader to leader about colleagues, peers, people in your business, because that's a leadership function. When you're talking about people as a cornerstone of your company, you're going to look at who they are, what they do, their responsibilities, how they're doing, right? That's okay. But the moment it becomes gossip, or the moment it becomes detrimental, let's say you're just talking about somebody at the coffee cooler, that's another cliche.
A coffee cooler?
It's the water conversation, right? Or going out for a cigarette or whatever your habit is, and you're chatting to somebody, did you hear about? That's not okay.
Well, it's also making decisions from third-party information if
Yep.
you haven't got factual information and not emotional information. So the conversation we were having this morning was a very personal conversation, but it stimulated from Stephanie Harrison's new book, The New Happy, which is an awesome book. And in it was about how do you get to that space and understand how not to take things to that negative context. This is our paraphrasing of what we're taking out of it in a conversation. But I do think it's really important because it's draining. It expires you on an individual
So be
energy
clearer,
level.
Debbie. Be
Okay.
much more clearer.
So when we talked this morning...
Now, what are you saying now?
Oh.
Not what we talked about this morning. Be clearer about what you're saying now
Okay.
about expiration and talking about each other secretly and negatively.
Because by doing it, we not only expire ourselves through energy and we zap ourselves, we then also have a knock-on effect that we damage other people around us because we're projecting a negative thing because we think it's either good rapport or we're connecting. But it doesn't matter whether you connect, but if you're still connecting on bad rapport, it's not healthy. It's
It really
not
isn't, no.
good energy. That's what I was attempting to share.
And it's usually filled with assumption, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because you're finishing somebody else's story. It goes back to the point of, do you have fact, or is it an emotional point that you're making about, well, I don't like this person. Do they do a really good job? Yes, they do. So liking them's irrelevant.
Yeah, but let's be clear here, right? Leadership here is you and I are talking about someone who's not present, right? They don't know about it. We then reach some type of agreement over them. We then measure that agreement the next time we see them, right? That's leadership. The person's not in the room. They can't influence what you just talked about because they don't know you talked about it. What's even worse though here in this expiration is in that same scenario, talking about each other secretly, page 151 of the book, right, is what if you and I are talking about something, about another person, and then we go and tell somebody else? Whether it's fun, banterish, or trivial or serious, doesn't matter. It's all the same leadership, right? It's not something you talk about to somebody else. Well, as a coach, the thing I love the most is when, and this is a strange thing to say because it may not make a lot of sense to the listener, right? But there are times with clients that we have that know each other will be totally surprised about what the other client has gone through, and they'll go, I had no idea they were going through that. And they're like surprised. But why would they know? Just because we know them and they know each other, why would they ever know what the other one's going through? We're coaches. Our confidentiality is a vault. Could you imagine if it wasn't?
But then that's
It'd
a
be
demonstration.
chaos.
It will.
Correct.
We would expire. We wouldn't have a
We would
business.
expire as a business, yeah.
So let's move into inspiration, because I think there is a lot in the book about what leadership looks like from an expiration perspective. And also I do think there is a really good point to tidy up expiration and end it is, there you go. But to tidy it up would be is that at times we do need to expire something. We do need to just stop and say, do you know what, we're not going to invest any more time in this, because it's understanding it is a culmination of two things, inspiration and expiration. Right, inspiration. In the book, you give loads of different examples around how you call it an inspiration strategy, but in regards to is things that can help people inspire, remember to take action, because that's what it's actually all about, right? So you talk about mindset tools.
Yep.
You talk about mind changes specifically.
Yep.
And mind changers are NLP driven tools and techniques that allow you to make instant impact, and they are in the book. And so we talked about format right at the beginning.
Yep.
So that's a really good way.
You're making this very easy. All I've got to say is yep to you.
Oh,
Are you
right,
asking
well,
me a question yet?
No, I'm not asking you. I'm going to ask you one in a minute, because
Go
I
on
want
then.
to ask you the bit about development and investment in people.
So before you get to that though, you were making a thing about clear definition of inspiration. I'd like to point directly to the very beginning where I talked about a conversation that I had with George from Syracuse, New York, about how fear and hope are the wrong way around. I found that throughout the book, that one conversation really made me think about inspiration a lot.
Okay,
Because
so
you got to inspire hope, and you do that by action.
So the point of the paragraph in the book, so people understand, because they might not be sat there with a book, Dave,
Aye.
is that fear currently is a driver for most people first, and what you want to see is actually hope.
Yeah.
So we call it, we in our business we call it optimism, as in being optimistic with hope and not focusing on the fear.
Yep. Fear is fed by time and thought life. If you starve it of both those things, it can't exist.
That's very true on every level. So the question I was going to ask you is, inspiring people to take action.
Yep.
How?
To get started.
Just how do you do it? Because as we said at the beginning, you could say, I want to inspire you, but then people generally think they can do that.
The answer is do it yourself first.
Exactly, thank
you get started.
Yes.
You do it.
Yes.
Modeling leadership, whether it's Leadership 2.0, where this is really important. If you're going to put Leadership 2.0 at the heart of your thinking as a leader, self-leadership or in your business or in your career, the influence we're asking you to share here is for the good and betterment of others. It's not for your own just selfish gain. That's why it says, model the leadership required of your time regardless of the consequences. Be the person that's brave. Be the person that's courageous. Be the person that's going to live their values out truthfully. Be the person whose words are going to be matched by their behavior. People are going to see that you mean what you say. They're going to witness it firsthand. Don't tell people what you did. Let them tell you what they saw you do for the better, for the good. And what you'll find is people will notice. They'll notice over time. And the other thing, in the different generations of leadership today, right? I don't care what your badge for what generation you are, right? This principle I'm about to talk about is timeless. If you're going to ask somebody to do something tomorrow, and this is another one of our leadership programs, the 7 leadership business principles from RLC, right? That rule number 1 says this. If you're going to ask somebody to do something tomorrow, do it yourself first, right? That's not about cleaning the toilets or, that cliche, oh, what's good leadership to you? Well, if something needs doing, I do it. That's not what I'm talking about. If you're asking somebody to change tomorrow, to evolve, to improve a process, take on a new skill, uplift their levels of thinking, you do it first before you go near them. Because when they see you've already done what you're talking about, they're going to feel better about it. They're going to process it easier. They're going to see that it's easier to get started. That's how you inspire action. You've got to have done it yourself first.
I was just thinking then about a social media thing that's going out in the next week or so. It's a made-up Dave word, and it's inspiration.
Yeah.
So inspire and
action.
It was just in my head, so I just thought I'd share it. The other thing that I was just reading about, and just double checking we put together, is we have, and when we coach people, our framework, we talk about either a mission, a vision, or a purpose. We don't actually have them in multiple versions now. And I think that's really important, because what we discovered was that people couldn't recall any of them. So what was the point of having them? But I do think there is something around being comfortable to know that, and I think it goes back to your singular point of, if people are inspired, therefore not taking action, the only reflection has got to be on self, not the other person.
Yes.
Yes.
So you've mentioned, again, several things there. What we say is, pick a mission, vision, or purpose. Get down to one thing. I don't really care what you call it. You can call it a special name if you like. Mm-hmm. You can ditch this 1970s leadership jargon. Lose mission, vision, and purpose. Make it really simple. We read a book together and separately recently, that no bullshit strategy. Make sure it says what it is that needs to happen.
I'll put the link in the thing.
Right? Because that's the other thing that goes wrong. We get so clever at what we say, it feels good, but you don't know what to do next. You can recall the one thing, you feel good about it, you're really motivated, but then you go, right, now what? And there's nothing. So get down to what needs to happen and keep it really simple. There was a study, Debbie, there's been many of them, last century and this century, about the amount of things people can concentrate on any given time. And it used to be 5 plus 2 minus 2. So that's 5 things plus 2, so a maximum of 7, and as low as 3. Now, it's 3 plus 2 minus 2. And for most people, it's one thing. So if you're building a communication strategy hoping to inspire people, and you've got multiple things, unless you've got the sexiest product in the world, you've got a solution to something that everyone's going to use. Now, if you just take the explosion of ChatGPT in 2022, right, the growth rate on that has never been seen before. That's unique, right?
But it still only does one thing.
It does one thing, and now it does many things, right?
Yes.
But when that took off, that's unique. You had something that no one else had, and they went first, right? Many of us don't have that. You don't have that opportunity. So get good at making something simple that I can work out what to do next. Therefore, you will inspire action.
One of the things that we talk about around inspiration is there's lots here. You give kind of very individual examples from websites right through to your people, to programs, to things to help people. But one of the things is the environment that we work in, and also creating environments as well. And we do gathers and gatherings.
Yeah.
So a gather is something that's a few hours long. A gathering is multiple days. But for us, it's being really clear about, we have clear structures around them. There's got to be an inspirational location.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to take action from it. It has to be inspirational food, something that I don't eat every single day, and I'm going to take the action of really appreciating it. And also, it's the content of conversation that goes, because it's then intentional, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So it's that intentionality and being real. So that's how you inspire in an environment. And just sitting in your office, have a look. Do you create those touch points that allow people to interact and be inspired by where they work?
Can I go off at an inspirational tangent?
Yes, please.
Today, I've been talking to people literally today about inspiration, right? So the question I asked a team of people today is, what around you in your office are you currently using that you like using? And we had things from, fancy calculators to nice keyboards to supersonic chairs. It doesn't matter what the items were, but they weren't run-of-the-mill things, right? And I said, right, now tell me, how many people do you think were involved in the creative thinking to create those things? And depending on the subject, it was lots of things, right? And then I said, now notice how much inspirational energy is available to you in something that you use every day that somebody else made for you that you're getting the benefit out of. It's right under your nose. And the point is, local inspiration through things that have been created. You're surrounded by it. Literally surrounded by it if you choose to see it.
Yeah. Notice what you don't notice.
Correct.
So one of the things that you touched on there as well is it's about keeping it simple. So if you really want to create action through inspirational activity, it has to be simple. It's not a plethora of things that you confuse somebody and they don't know, they can't actually pick an individual thing. So be very specific and keep it simple, which is pretty much a key part of leadership anyway, isn't it?
The other thing, Debs, I'd like to draw out of the book is that the one thing we often get confused by, this inspiration not followed by action is usually because we associate inspiration to things that are impressive, right? So there are a lot of impressive things in the world. And also impressive feats, things people do, but you don't go and do anything afterwards. But when you meet somebody locally who gets your attention, I highlight some stories of real people I know without saying who they are. A single mum battling through life to provide for her family despite adversity. That's a real person. I see that and I go, how do they do it? You know our daughters who've got children in busy lives these days, any mum, young children, how do they do it? There's so much to do. And I'm sure it was the same for us when we were younger with younger children, right? But I don't remember those feelings and anxieties, do you?
But I also think this is the difference about anything that we talk about. It changes. Inspiration changes at what stage of your life you're at.
Yeah.
Because, we're in, what would we class our age now, Dave?
Oh, young as anything.
Well, I do feel young, but we're still older, right? So
am I technically a millennial? Just?
No, you're not.
Am I not?
No,
okay.
Definitely not a millennial. You were born in 1976. How can you be a millennial?
I don't know, Debbie.
Interesting. What I was attempting to say was that inspiration at being 20, at being 50 is very different. And I think this is what's really interesting about the whole of the book. Whatever stage you're at in your life or career, whatever that is, it's irrelevant. It is going to continue to evolve and change as you go through it. We did that exercise about our gathering last August up here at Easter Sheehan, and we painted the posts.
Yeah.
And we painted the posts, and we put numbers on the post from 0 to 100, and everybody went and stood at their number, and then they could look forward and they could look backwards. What was really interesting was we'd forgotten, or I had forgotten as I'd painted the posts, that they ended up at the graveyard at the bottom of our drive.
Yeah, that was funny. Expiration.
Expiration. But it changes. So we had a real variety, diverse age group at the gathering, and everybody saw the actions completely different from the stage of life. And I think we've got to remember that when we're a leader, if you're talking to a group of people, each one of them is going to have a different connection to that inspiration or expiration behaviours that you are exhibiting.
Correct. Leadership or leadership, Debbie.
Indeed.
Great.
So my next question is, and I'm zooming now to the latter parts of this section, but there is a bit in the book that you talk a lot about, and there's some very tailored questions around beliefs and inspiration.
Yeah.
Do you want to share your thoughts about that?
Which bit do you want me to talk about, Debbie?
So there's a part where we talk about inspiration. You've made it into your lovely acronym, you know, because we know that Dave loves an acronym.
Yep.
But what you talk about is, you know, being able to prioritise and develop people and understand people is, you've also got to understand what where their beliefs are.
Yeah, again, this starts with you. Often people in the coaching we do, if you ask somebody what do they believe about themselves, their latent potential, or who they are, some of the answers you get back are candidly quite vague, because it's not something that's in your everyday thinking for most people. So the first thing you've got to learn is, what are yours? Then you've got to identify, are these beliefs helping you or hindering you, to keep it simple for the podcast? Are they useful? Mm-hmm. Are they out by somewhat degree? Is there any negative thought process in them? And what would happen if you just corrected it just a little bit to improve it?
Can I do something fun?
You can, I hope.
Right, so just for anybody listening, Dave and I love doing quizzes, don't we, Dave?
Yeah.
Like quizzes about what we both think, and so there is a set of questions here.
Yeah.
There is, I think there's 10 of them. Can I ask you the questions?
You can, yeah.
And you're going to answer them live?
Yeah, and I'll put my book down.
Okay, all right. So the first question is, what beliefs do you have about your potential?
I believe I can genuinely do anything that I'm interested in.
Great answer. What have you always wanted to learn to do?
Still haven't done it. Still don't know how to do it. I'd like to learn how to do Hell Week.
Which is what, Dave?
Hell Week's something they do in one of the navies in America. One of the military forces in America. David Goggins did it, yeah. Right. And it fills me with absolute fear, but I feel there's a breakthrough there for me.
Okay. What do you believe is your destiny?
To leave a mark on this planet from the energy I was gifted when I had none.
Okay, because just to explain, Dave, you had ME when you were growing up.
I had ME, yeah.
You need to explain to people.
I know, and it'll be in the new book, Debbie, Own Your Mind, Own Your Life. Okay. So everyone will know about it.
What beliefs do you have that do not support you?
I sometimes think about what my brain doesn't do, and I get lost in the weeds of those thought processes, which are, I'll call it, it's the same as everyone's self-talk, but sometimes I get, I get lost in the labyrinth of those comparisons. Why don't I think simple self-talk thoughts? And why do I make it complex?
Okay, so give an example, because that's quite ambiguous.
I know, it's not meant to be ambiguous, but the problem I have is I see so much at once, and I don't know which bit to explain. See, there's the self-talk. There's the problem. You might see a sentence. I see a whole plethora of maps coming together, and they all look like the same thing. So I then just stop and get stuck. Then I interrupt myself, and I don't stay there, because that's what I do and that's what I teach. But that's an example of one that gets in the way occasionally. Okay.
Thank you very much for sharing. Do your behaviours match your goals or outcomes?
Yes.
Is that it?
No, they do. They do.
Okay, so give an explanation. Let people understand what you do.
I can be having a bad day in a Dave world. I can be having a mental lapse of not being at my absolute sharpest, but I'll still execute the things that make me better that day, relentlessly behaviourally.
So explain again, Dave. What does that actually mean?
I will train. I will learn. I will listen to books. I will do, Debbie just rolled her eyes. I know you can't see it on the podcast, right? But I'll do all of those things. I'll do my 8 out of 8 that bring me a better mental state as a result, and I don't stay in the space that I was in beforehand.
Okay, big question. What beliefs would you change immediately if you believed you could?
Well, I do believe I can. Now, that's really interesting. The one thing I will change immediately is all of the thoughts that I have in that self-talk confusion from earlier is I will use NLP techniques to change its representation and stick it in the bin. I'll delete them.
Okay, so are you saying that you don't do that?
No, it's a new discovery. I've been working through why it happens. So before I bin it, I just want to know why it happened. That's why I haven't done it yet. Because it's new.
And then we'll do a mic drop one. What do others believe about you that is not true?
I was talking about this with Max in the car today. Earlier in my career, sometimes I used to get considered to be arrogant because people that don't know me don't always like that I am a certain person. Let me be clear, not a certain type of person. I'm very certain. I know who I am. I know what I am. It's been carved inside me. And sometimes I'm good at those things and sometimes I'm not so good at those things. That can seem arrogant. It isn't. It's a certainty. Those who know me know that. At first you might find, oh wow, he's a bit different. I'm not. I just know who I am. And I want everyone to know who they are.
So thank you. And thank you for telling and answering them off the hoof, as they say, because I didn't actually plan that one with you. There is also a set of those questions that you can do in a team.
Yep.
Once, the caveat would be is if you do choose to have these conversations with your team, please know your team a little bit so that you're actually not just going blind. We are married and been together many, many years. So as we wrap up this chapter, we've ended each one with an explanation of what leadership is and what leadership isn't in each of the topics. So this week is inspiration or expiration. So are you on that page?
Yeah, I am.
So do you want to just talk through a couple of examples of what leadership or what leadership is in inspiration or expiration and what it isn't in leadership?
So great leadership is, which links to some of Margaret Mead's work originally, is a culture that allows people to flourish and succeed, right? Leadership is building your whole team or company around you. Mm-hmm. Problem with that is you don't need to be a smart person to realize that person falls over, that company's in trouble. Doesn't matter how short or long it takes, they're in trouble because unless that person's going to live for years, that leadership doesn't work.
I think another question here is, and this might have to be off topic or somewhere else, but what if I'm a solopreneur listening to this and it is just me and I don't lead a team and I don't, it is about self-leadership. What would be a plan for somebody who's running a business solo? What could be an opportunity here?
Systems and processes to be.
Yes. Okie dokes.
And to use tech to do it.
Yep. Outsource.
Yep. Another one is leadership. Achieve success through others' burnout and stress.
Yep.
Now, leadership, this is a big one. Burnout is caused by the company, not the person. Right? That's leadership. Leadership is achieve and build success around acting and doing. And if you're listening to this and we've known you for years, please, stop measuring people by how many hours they work.
Yeah.
Start measuring people by how effective they are, what skills they're using, what processes they're doing, and where do they need help.
Love it.
That's leadership.
So, great little topic. I think we've meandered around it quite successfully and gone up, down, left, right, and had several tangents as well. So that was inspiration or expiration. This has been Double D.
That's
I'm
right.
Debbie Halls-Evans.
And I'm Dave Evans. And inspiration just takes a moment of time to think about it. Inspiration is an opportunity to build hope. Inspiration is something anyone can do when they just stop for a second and take action.
Thank you for tuning in to Ann.Double-D. For ongoing inspiration, follow us at Ann.Scott on Instagram and online. Keep going, keep inspiring. Until our next episode.